this point is an explosion of life. Now, all of this time period is referred to as the Precambrian. So all of this from 4.5 billion years ago to 545 million. This is a Precambrian, and it was basically very, very minimal life forms. Now, one of your textbooks will use the number 543. One textbook will use 543. One textbook will use 547. So the 545 is kind of a compromise. And again, if you were to see this on a quiz, I will use a 545. Again, it is not etched in stone, but the other numbers you're going to see at the end of the Precambrian will be so far off that you're stuck with 545. Precambrian is all time from the very beginning to 545 million years. It's a time without abundant life. Okay. Since I have it turned this way, Phanerozoic. Again, what do you think this means over here?
Age.
Life. So Phanerozoic is the presence or abundance of life. So 545 million years ago is the beginning of the population of planet Earth. Not our species yet, but of various other species. If someone called you a cockroach, is that a positive or a negative? So if you're sitting in a bar and someone says, "You cockroach, you," would you think that was a positive or a negative?
Negative.
Should be a positive, as cockroaches have survived in wide ranges of environments for an extended period of time. They've been around for about 350 billion years. They have lived through various times. They outlasted a dinosaur. They outlasted a whole host of other organisms. But the old cockroach has lived and survived and thrived. So when the guy calls you a cockroach, say thank you and buy him a beer and he won't know what to do. So during this Phanerozoic, you'd end up with cockroaches in there and never go all the way to the present day, obviously.
Do you think
Okay, the Phanerozoic is basically divided up into three separate eras of geologic time. These are called eons, by the way. And if we're not going to subdivide the Precambrian at all, but we will subdivide the Phanerozoic. But let's do something here. Let me get rid of this. Makes more sense with this. Okay, Phanerozoic divided into three eras of geologic time. Eras are subdivisions of the eons. The first one, Paleo. What does Paleo mean? Come on, you anthropologists. I know there's one of you out here.
Stone.
Paleo means old. Paleozoic, old life. Starts in the marine environment, gradually makes its way onto land. The first non-insect land-based organisms probably was what? Land-based animal organism. Non-insect, probably with what? Amphibians, reptiles, fish.
Amphibian.
Amphibians, great. But the amphibian probably evolved from what?
Fish.
Fish. Which one? We had a unique creature called the lungfish. And some biologists feel that that's predecessor to amphibian. The lungfish had the capacity, we still see them today, to move, especially in the savanna. Now, what happens in the savanna again? What? What happens in the savanna? Okay, it gets dry in the savanna. Little puddles dry up. And you have all these little lakes in the savanna during the wet season. And during the dry season, they have a tendency of drying out. And obviously, any lungfish in one puddle, as it dries up, is going to have to say, well, I'm going to have to move from this neighborhood because the water is gone. The lungfish has pectoral fins, those fins on the bottom side, strong enough that they can motor across dry land. They have respiratory ability to survive outside of water. They propel themselves with their tail, but the fins are there for support. And it may not have been, listen carefully, it may not have been the lungfish that led up to the amphibians, but it was something like the lungfish that led to the amphibians. And amphibians are unique because of what? Part of their life cycle is where? In the water, parts on land. By the time you get to reptiles, you're land-based. So the amphibians are first, the reptiles come later. You end up with trees, you end up with fish and flying organisms through here. So through this period, we go from aquatic life to an abundance of land-based life of various types. You go to trees. So Earth is beginning to look somewhat like Earth looks today. At this point, 80 to 85, possibly 90% of all life forms are extinguished. Massive extinction at the end of the Paleozoic. Bam, done. Why we really don't have the complete answer. Okay, then we have room for organisms to come into being. And this next phase is referred to as the Mesozoic. Frequently, when we think of the Mesozoic, we think of the dinosaurs. Dinosaurs weren't the only organism. Jurassic is the age of birds. Up until this time, you had flying reptiles, but now we have actual birds with feathers. If we were trying to find the closest ancestor to a dinosaur today, and we strike out the Komodo dragon, what would it be?
Hawk.
It would be birds. Birds are closer to the dinosaur in character than they are to the reptile. People thought dinosaurs were just big reptiles, but more and more research have shown that dinosaurs are warm-blooded animals. Reptiles are not. More and more research shows that dinosaurs maintain nests and literally supported young. Reptiles typically do not. Birds do. And so genetically, the dinosaur may be closer to birds than they are to the reptiles of planet Earth.
Is from 545 million years.
240 to 247 years. And then Mesozoic is from that period to 63 or 67.